we're going to take you to court. You're going to lose. So I'm going to send this over to Kronos now because he is a lawyer in copyright law. That is his job. Welcome to the Finding Out timeline, bud.
Hello, future lolcow here. Full timeline breakdown. I started making idle streaming Bonanza roughly a year ago. I wanted to make an idle/clicker game. I never made one before. I also decided on a theme, a lo-fi room where you could edit the room. I got drunk one night, was watching the infamous cookie debacle. I started making an animated short. I put a character from that short in my game, decided to switch it up. I pissed myself laughing. Fast forward, started posting on Reddit. People didn't like it. Decided to double down. Waited for more drama. Doc happened. Added him. Tried posting on LSF. Mod said I needed to stream it first, then post. Kept working on the game, did Steam Next Fest, got little wishlist, decided to drum up some business to get eyes on the game. Pirate Software drama happens. He's unhinged, taking down YouTubers, decided to add it to my personal build. Posted on Incremental and LSF. LSF Redditors, mixed bag of comments. Some liked it, some hated it. Reddit lawyers start yapping. Pirate Software sees this and decides to DMCA the game. No reach out to communicate with me. Steam takes it down. I sent a counter notice explaining the content on Steam has no data with him in it. Doubles down on stream, says he'll go to court. Kronos is an actual copyright lawyer. Try to delete the VOD. I big brain. I record it first. Got lawyer. Mario Cerami. He's GOAT. Pro bono GOAT. Here are the chat logs. Real quick, I am hosting a game jam, Roachware Jam 2025. Yeah. Come check it out. I got a DMCA on Steam. I want it removed. I received a DMCA on Steam with my indie game. It was taken down. There is no content even related to Pirate Software on my game that is uploaded to Steam. Idle Streaming Bonanza was the game. The appropriate parties will reply to this ticket when available. Oh hey, is this the game that includes clips of Thor speaking in game? I saw the Reddit thread about this. Looks like you were warned by people on there about this exact outcome. Smiley face. It don't matter, the DMCA will get removed. Thor's voice is not in any content on Steam. Y'all jumped the gun on something that doesn't exist on Steam. So good job. We can and will file legal proceedings based on the use of the clip/voice. You are entirely able to voice act the lines yourself, and we would no longer have an issue with utilizing someone else's voice rather than Thor's. Would turn this from a copyright issue into a mere parody. You cannot call it a guest appearance, but sure, feel free to include the lines he spoke as an Easter egg, etc. Steam has kindly provided us with your personal information so that we can file the claim in the state of Florida. Why DMCA my Steam game when the issue you have is the Reddit post? The demo on Steam has no data or reference to him property. That's fine. I agree to it. Under Steam Terms of Service, we're able to file this DMCA for the game as it currently stands. Published builds display this content within the game. Whether or not it's a demo is irrelevant. You chose to publish that clip. Is that a published build? No. You published a clip of this game to this website. Not a published build of the game, and clearly stated that Pirate Software was playable. You have published news about your game, about a build that doesn't exist on Steam. It is a build about which you published information, footage, or other details. All we're asking you to do is remove the clips, voiceovers, and replace them with your own voice acting. We are happy to make a filing, Mr. Ferrantino, but that seems like a waste of your time as well as ours. Then you could have asked instead of taking down the Steam game with no data or builds with the content related to Pirate Software. The build of the game is on my personal PC. We have a legal process we are due to follow, which includes making a report to Steam. False report. We are happy to retract the claim once those changes are made. What changes? The game never had them in. It is not a false report, as far as we are aware. Based on the information you made public, Pirate Software was in the game and playable. Did you play the game on Steam? It meets the criteria for us to make a claim. It meets the criteria for us to bring a lawsuit. Did you play the game on Steam? But that seems like a waste of time for both of us when all we're asking you to do is not use recordings of Thor's voice. That is not remotely relevant to the matter at hand. The fact of the matter are that a build of your game contains content which is not yours. It is because the DMCA will be removed once the builds are shown that the content doesn't exist. So when you have edited the game to remove the content, there is nothing in the builds currently on Steam that is related to Thor. Do you plan to include anything in the future? Of parody, yes. Will you use his direct voice lines in the video, or will you voice act/replace them? The former is a copyright issue, the latter is parody. I don't like it, but I'll concede. GG. After looking more into it, even though the game itself is a parody, that should be transformative enough. Voice acting will be used as parody. Great, thanks for the confirmation. We have no issue at all with that from a legal perspective and appreciate the compromise. Honestly, props to you for making your own game. Even if I don't agree with some of the content, I know it's a cool thing to be doing and it can take a lot of willpower and skill to do it. Props to you and good luck with development further down the line. Thanks. I feel like it should be protected under parody because it is a criticizing piece. Perhaps commentary added would suffice, no? Sadly not. Criticism does not equal parody. Nice docs, bud. Given your details are given in the DMCA, we'll be passing it into law enforcement officials and removing your access to the server. Good luck. The issue with this is Kronos is not an actual lawyer here in the United States. He is a lawyer in the UK. He does not know what he's talking about when he's talking about copyright law in the United States. Criticism and parody both meet the criteria for fair use. I am attempting to reach the attorney working under the handle Kronos. I sent him DMs some hours ago and I believe he hasn't seen them. This concerns an actual legal matter and I need to bring the messages to his attention. Hello, not an attorney, just to be clear. Oh, very well. I thought Mr. Hall represented a fellow named Kronos as an actual copyright attorney. Do you know whether Mr. Hall has counseled concerning the DMCA takedown? I imagine you were the same individual in the ticket yesterday. Hi there. This matter was settled yesterday. A user reached out to us about it and assured us that despite the stated original intent to use Mr. Hall's voice line, they would instead be utilize voice acting. As a lawyer, I have an ethical obligation not to speak with someone directly if I believe they are represented, at least not without permission of the person's attorney. This closes the matter on our end, and we are preparing the email now. I assume this was your client. Sir, respectfully, I'm evaluating claims here. He is now. You may have a 512F problem. We may have everything work out, but I'll want it all in writing. We have not yet engaged an attorney in relation to this specific matter, given the matter was closed on our... We have not yet engaged an attorney in relation to this specific matter. Given the matter was closed on our before this, what information is it that you need from us? If it is grounds under which we submitted the DMCA, we can provide this information. I read the takedown. I do not necessarily agree. Did you do a good faith evaluation for fair use under Lens versus Universal? Look, you're not a lawyer. It's all fine. Mr. Hall represented on stream. He had an attorney, specifically with an individual with the handle Kronos. If he does not have an attorney, you're not directed to correspond with my client. You should correspond with me directly. Everything may work out as you hope and anticipate, but I want to take a close look here. I believe you may have conflated a state tort with a copyright claim, which is not permissible under DMCA. Furthermore, I believe you did not do a check for fair use in good faith pursuant to Lens versus Universal, which has been the law of the country for over a decade. I just want to make sure my client is treated fairly through the process and make sure it is all on the up and up. Using Mr. Hall's voice without permission is not fair use. We discussed and agreed that they would not, and as such, our issue has been lifted. If you were an attorney, I would say you were a bit out of bounds, but you were not. I believe my client believed you were, based on the statements of Mr. Hall on stream. Sir, on what do you base that claim? Is a DMCA takedown lifted yet? I am not an attorney. No, I am based in the UK as a lawyer, but there are fundamentally different terminologies here. Ah, yes, absolutely. Fair use is similar, but different for you. We will be putting together the report for Steam over the coming days. We have 14 days for this. Ours is a constitutional limitation, or rather 12 now. I've helped UK clients before on fair use DMCA issues. Ferret shaking head. Okay. Look, I am going to send Mr. Hall a legal letter. Because I do not believe he has a lawyer here, I am going to communicate directly to him. Neither Mr. Hall nor any of his agents may communicate with directly with my client. They may only communicate directly with me. We have no reason nor intent to. I believe we can resolve this in good faith. Well, you said a moment ago you're going to email him. As far as we're concerned, the matter is already resolved. Is the DMCA lifted yet? Where? Have you withdrawn the takedown? This email for Steam, we are not emailing your client. This closes the matter on our end, and we are preparing the email now. We have to respond to the platform to which the DMCA was filed to inform them that the matter is closed. Let me put it more clearly. I'm going to demand you immediately withdraw, or I may seek damages under Lens versus Universal and 512F. That is not a threat. I am investigating the situation, but you are not correct, nor should you be dispensing legal advice as to the 14 days being an absolute shield to liability. I will send legal correspondence. I do believe my conversation with you is at an end, as you are not an attorney, nor does it seem you are authorized to handle a legal matter for Mr. Hall. I will direct correspondence to him directly. We will be withdrawing the DMCA once we have prepared the documentation to do so. We then need to email this to Steam, the platform on which the notice was filed. I do not know what the process is on their end. I recognize that you'll be sending a letter to Mr. Hall and will inform him accordingly. Very well. I would note that you only need to send a very, very short notice to Steam saying that you withdraw. And while you do not, it hurts my client in a pecuniary way, illegally, if you are not compliant with the law, and I believe you are not. All right, sir. Have a good day, and I caution you against UPL on this side of the pond.
I don't know that everybody understands how the DMCA actually works. Some people will, some of your viewers will, and some of your viewers won't. So I'm going to explain basically the structure of the thing real quick. Okay. So normally you can't make the rule before the DMCA was you had to go through a whole lawsuit and everybody had to pay a lot of money to lawyers before you could get something taken off the internet. And copyright stuff early on, when the internet was still young and dirt was still cooling, um, they Congress came up with this fast track way to resolve claims without having to get a bunch of lawyers involved. The idea was that people wouldn't necessarily have to have lawyers, but it could be resolved quickly, and you could get the online service provider could get out of the way, so that because they were publishing the material, so we wanted to get them out of the way in the same way the Communications Decency Act, Section 230, gets the online service provider out of the way. So Digital Millennium Copyright Act, if you believe in good faith that you have a strong belief in good faith that there's your material, your copyrighted material, your intellectual property is improperly being used, then you can issue a takedown notice and you issue it to the online service provider. You don't just have to issue it to the person who's infringing, but you issue it to the online service provider who's republishing or publishing your material. And you say, this is mine. And they have to immediately take it down, and they tell the person who published it, the person who published the material through the online service, hey, somebody took this down. Here's their notice. And that person then can issue a counter notice and say, no, 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 no. That takedown is improper. And then you have set it, and people have to share information around this in order to make lawsuits happen. So what this does is it squares up the ability for these two people, aside from the online service provider, the person who claims the IP and the person who gives a counter notice as to his IP. It lets them get in a squabble with each other and get the online service provider out of the way. If the online service provider follows the procedures under the DMCA, they're immune from liability. It's the safe harbor provision. Okay. So in this case, they issued a DMCA takedown. And you had a view that was critical of JTH for the Dyer Mall poll. And I told you, look, I don't think he was that unreasonable in the Dyer Mall poll. This is a little bit cheeky between us. But I also said I like JTH, like I like his material. And maybe you're a little more critical of him than I am. Fair?
I honestly, I didn't know that much about it. I just grabbed I saw the clip. I thought it was funny. Other than that, like the only thing I've seen about JTH or Thor was YouTube shorts. And I thought it was cool that what he's doing for games or getting people into indie games and stuff. Just because I necessarily like the person doesn't mean I'm not going to put them in my game, or you know what I mean. So if they just had like a funny moment or just a L take, then I'm gonna put them in there. That's pretty much it. But I didn't necessarily have a critical view of him though.
Okay, all right. So I point out to JTH in the letter that his takedown is, I believe, unlawful. It's okay. I point out to JTH in the letter very early on that I believe his takedown is unlawful under this case called Lenz versus Universal Music Corporation, 2015 case. So immediately after the DMCA, shortly as things develop, like there's a new procedure and courts are starting to wrestle with it. We have this doctrine in the US called fair use. Some other countries have it, but for us, it's particularly strong because it's based on the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. Congress, copyright law is a law made by Congress, and Congress shall make no law that infringes on freedom of speech or of the press, okay, that abridges it. So the doctrine of fair use encompasses things that fall within the scope of free speech and are not protected by copyright in that way. But they are sued by the person who enjoys fair use, but you can't sue them for it. So it's an exception to the copyright law, and it's based on the First Amendment and the freedom of speech in the U.S. law. Okay. We told in the letter we say, look, you got to withdraw your DMCA takedown in 24 hours, or there's going to be a problem. And I said, I said it because so that way we can talk about it. Because right now, as soon as you do a DMCA takedown, it causes a person harm immediately. So it's ripe for abuse. It's a very powerful instrument because you can get someone's stuff taken off the internet. Normally, we would call that kind of thing a prior restraint or a kind of censorship because it's pursuant to U.S. law. It's a kind of government state action, and it's like a kind of censorship. That's another reason why the First Amendment gets involved. So I explained to JTH then that if he doesn't do that, then I believe he's going to be liable under a particular provision of the DMCA that allows someone to say, hey, you did that wrong, and we're going to collect, you hurt my guy, you hurt my client, and we can collect damages for it. So there was part of the thing that made me upset was that when JTH said he had a lawyer, an actual copyright lawyer, I then looked at your discussions with this fellow, and he was behaving in a way a lawyer should not. An attorney in the United States should not behave. So I can't, as a lawyer, we're restricted in terms of our ability to speak to people who are non-lawyers if we know they have a lawyer. So I believed, because of what he said in stream, he had a lawyer. So I approached this fellow myself, and I've given you the chat logs of that, which you can share if you want. But I approached this fellow who I believed was the lawyer, Kronos, and said, hey, so where do I send this correspondence? I have legal correspondence. I need to send legal mail to your client, who I believe was his client at the time. The gentleman immediately identified that he was not an attorney. And I said, oh, because in the US, lawyer and attorney are basically synonymous. If I say I'm a lawyer and I'm not admitted to practice law, that's bizarre, and that can get me in big trouble. Yeah, there was one more thing. So I've been pretty active in this case in terms of talking and openly about your case. We're doing this right now, for example, and a lot of times lawyers don't do that in cases, and there's good reasons for that. But when publicity is affecting your client, and there's an uneven power in publicity. For example, if a prosecutor says something that isn't true about your client, and says something egregiously not true that suggests your client committed a crime, or the record doesn't support that, or your position doesn't support that, then you, as an attorney, you need to correct the record. You need to come into the public space, and you have an obligation to do that. And there's a really good case on point, Dominic Gentile versus State Bar of Nevada. Dominic I know him. We're colleagues in the First Amendment Lawyers Association together. So that's a really important point. Like, normally attorneys, you shouldn't talk. You should avoid it because you can end up saying something to get your client in a jam. Or you, as the attorney, you might become part of the lawsuit. You might become a witness. You might become part of the suit in a way that, as opposed to being someone who's working on the suit, you might become part of the suit because of something you said. So normally attorneys don't talk, and normally I don't either. But when you have, in this kind of situation, the power of publicity is very lopsided. You don't have a ton of followers. He has millions of followers. There's been statements that are incorrect about the law, objectively incorrect. And that's why I got, normally I wouldn't, even in a case I cared a lot about, I normally would avoid the public spotlight as much as possible. I would be less involved. But in your case, I've been more involved than I usually am, even in cases with because we have, even with cases where there's this great disparity in power, because the people who care about your case and are following it, and the people who would be affected by it and not buy your video game because of the story, they don't read the papers, most of them. Not anymore. So you got to go where the people are at in order to effectively communicate. So that's why I've been very much, even in YouTube, I've been taking on some explaining your position very well. That's why we're doing this video here. It's because of that disparity. And I think attorneys have an obligation under the rules of professional conduct where there is this issue, they have to talk.
This all boils down to idle streaming bonanza being DMCA'd as a sad attempt to shut me up. I also conceded to not using Thor's voice in my game under advice from a lawyer I believe to be an actual attorney able to practice here in the States. However, using Thor's voice lines could still be potential trouble as I would have to argue fair use in a court because it becomes a case-by-case basis. Mara's opinion was a 60% chance of winning if I were to pursue. Unfortunately, it would be a battle of wallets. That's the last of the milk. It's been a fun ride, and yeah, I'll catch y'all later.